Life Happens Laugh Anyway podcast, Humor Consumers. I am one of your hosts, comedian Tracy DeGraff, and I'm here with...
Catherine, the other host.
Yeah, my bestie.
Yes, thank you for that.
I love having a bestie.
Me too.
Yeah, but you know too much.
And so do you.
I know. All right. I am holding in my hot little hands, literally hot, because it is hot in here, because I'm hot and she's not, and I can't help it. But here I am holding in my hands my book called Laugh Anyway, Mom. And today's topic for our listeners is the topic of joy. And the reason that I'm holding my book is because this book is organized in 7 chapters. The first 6 chapters are just funny. They're just funny things that all moms do, like go through a car wash with their Christmas tree on the roof, things like that.
Right.
You know, crazy mom life, family life. But then you get to the last chapter. And the last chapter is called... Ooh, I even forgot the name of my last chapter. Hold on, let me get to it.
Do you want me to say it?
No, because I got it right here.
Oh, there you go.
Well, you can say it. Go ahead.
Oh. Chapter 7. I've got the joy, 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 joy.
Yes. You remember that song? It's like an old Christian camp song.
Mm-hmm.
I've got the joy, 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 joy.
Yeah.
Down
I had to
in my
dress
heart.
up for that song and do it at the banquet when I was on
Oh, did you?
Agape.
Good for you.
Yeah.
And you weren't a little kid then.
No, I was not. I was
grown.
a full-grown adult dressed like an old lady.
So here's the joy chapter in my book, and it starts out funny, but then it leads into a quite serious matter that my family was going through, and how that, it was a medical situation. I point out to the reader how life can kind of you can have the rug pulled out from under you. You really can. And then in those moments, we have an opportunity to have instant perspective.
That's right.
We really do.
That's right.
I kind of feel like, I know that we keep going back to COVID because we're in it.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
today is January 5th, 2021,
Mm-hmm.
and we're still in this COVID situation. But I feel like the whole world has had the rug yanked out.
Yeah.
Think that, you know, everybody thought 2020 is going to be this, it's going to be that. It wasn't this or that.
Right.
It was off
It
the
wasn't.
page.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
Different chapter.
So you reread my chapter.
I did. I enjoyed it.
Oh, you enjoyed the joy chapter?
I did.
Good. So so tell our listening friends what you got out of it, Catherine.
Well, I found myself smiling as I was reading it because not only good writing, Tracy.
Thank you.
Yeah, but also I too was reminded of well, first of all, that particular incident with Joel, with your son Joel, and I remember it. But even if I hadn't, as a reader reading the book, I could relate to that whole sense of, well, that's nothing. You're fine. You're fine. And I know you put that in there for a reason, and how bad you felt afterward. But the whole point is that Joel did have something pretty serious
He did.
wrong with him, and then it gave you a perspective of what you're really grateful for, because
Yes.
prior to that you have 5 boys and you were overwhelmed, and when Joel was crying and in pain you thought it really wasn't much, so you were in the throes of it and like, oh no, another delay. So
Yeah, and I think that's just our human nature, is when everyday life is coming at us. I used to call it, when I was in the throes of family life, I used to call it like snowflakes in the windshield. You know, we grew up obviously in Illinois, in the Midwest, and when you're driving, especially at night during a snowstorm, all those snowflakes just look like they're coming at you. It's hard to see, it's stressful, and that's how I felt for a good 10, 15 years because of being in the thick of it. When you have something like a health situation that I outlined in the book about our son Joel, who since has completely recovered and he's a fully healthy. How old is he? 23?
I think
Yeah.
he did,
Yeah. Wait, no.
Yeah.
Is he?
Yes.
I can never remember
He is 23.
how old my kids are. I thought he was 24. My other son Joel, what's his name? Adam. He's going to be 22.
Oh my gosh, then
He's
my Patrick
24.
is
Oh,
going
we're
to
out
be
of our minds.
25 then.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I think so. We're going to have to do the math on this and get back to you,
Yeah.
listeners, because we're apparently losing all of our brain cells right now
Oh my goodness.
in this hot pod lab. Anyway, getting back to perspective, when the rug is pulled out from under you, all of a sudden, the things that were bothering you are they're off your plate. You don't even think about them. When this medical situation happened with our son, I didn't care anymore that, the kids had ruined the carpet, or one time my children wrote on my minivan with rocks. They were outside drawing circles on my minivan with rocks. It was very exciting.
I thought you were going to mention when they had ketchup or syrup, because you mentioned you didn't care if your rug was
Yeah.
messed up anymore.
Yeah, that was chocolate syrup all over the rug, and we had to get a new rug.
Oh, yeah.
Couldn't even get it out. There was no way.
Gosh.
Yeah, but it was an insurance claim, which I didn't know. My cousin worked for an insurance company, and she said, your homeowner's insurance might cover it, and they did. They called it a natural disaster.
Yes, my
They did.
sister-in-law actually benefited from that when her son put permanent marker. He scribbled on the carpet, and yet when there was a natural disaster, they said they wouldn't cover it because it was an act of God.
So goofy.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a side note.
All right.
So the point of actually the whole point of my book and a lot of my ministry is to, it's life happens, laugh anyway. We're all going to go through these experiences. You have to dig deep sometimes to find the joy, but it's there. So don't give up. Don't give in to the circumstances, but find the joy. One of the things that Catherine and I wanted to share with you all is our version of Laminated Jesus.
Oh, yes. We love Jesus, and we love our laminated Jesus.
Yes, and we do not mean that at all to be disrespectful or kind of joking about our Jesus. It's not an idol or anything like that, because some people might say, "Oh, that's irreverent."
In vain. It's not.
Yeah, but it's not like that. Here's how Laminated Jesus came to be. We have a little picture it's just a picture of Jesus. And the lamination is just packaging tape over the top of his face and the bottom of it, whatever. Catherine had Laminated Jesus taped on the dash of her vehicle. Caleb and I were just talking about this.
Oh, yeah?
Yesterday, yes.
Really?
My youngest son is the same age as Catherine's youngest daughter. And we used to take them to orthodontist appointments, to the same orthodontist on the same day, so that we could help one another. If one wasn't available, we would take turns taking the kids to the ortho. Great. It worked out splendid.
It sure did.
Until one day, it was Catherine's turn to take the kids to the ortho. And she said, "You want to ride along?" And I said, "Sure. I don't have anything to do. I'll go with you." Mm-hmm. And I went with her. And I was at that season of time, I was overwhelmed with so many things. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really look at my calendar. I just thought, "Oh, yeah, I'm not busy. Let's go." And this was, I don't even recall now. The kids were in junior high, and now they're 19 years old.
Yeah.
So it was many years ago. Mm-hmm. And I was at the beginning of my speaking career. So I wasn't really getting paid much for doing talks. And I was doing a lot of freebies or, little...
Getting your feet wet.
Yeah, just kind of getting in there. And I did a lot of MOPS events. Well, there was a MOPS group in the Chicago area. They were from Naperville, Illinois. And we live in Peatone, Illinois. It's about an hour drive, depending on traffic, because in the Chicago area, it can take you 30 minutes to go 10 miles, depending on where you are.
Right.
Well, this group in Naperville had booked me for the same day as the orthodontist appointment. I totally, utterly forgot. Mm-hmm. I didn't look at it was written on my calendar. I did not look at my calendar. I just felt like, oh yeah, I don't have anything to do. And I didn't look at the calendar. I was completely disorganized. I'm admitting that. I'm taking full responsibility for that.
Well, and also at the time you weren't in the habit of looking at your calendar.
No.
You weren't quite as busy as you pointed out.
It was just a season of being overwhelmed, and I wanted to go with Catherine because we were going to drop off the kids at the ortho, and then we were going to go shopping to one of our favorite little secondhand consignment stores.
Yeah, I think we had something afterward. More than shopping, I thought, but
well,
whatever.
I recall thinking, oh, that sounds like fun to me. I need a break. I need the relief and the fun.
Oh.
So off I went.
Yeah.
Well, Catherine and I had dropped off the kids at the ortho, and now we're on our way to our favorite little consignment store, and my phone rang. The moment I looked down at my phone, my heart sank to my shoes
Yeah.
because I remembered all of the memories came flooding back in. I'm supposed to be in Naperville, Illinois right now, giving a talk to these moms. Catherine's getting
I am. I'm getting
visibly
tense.
nervous.
Yeah, because I just
She's remembering
remembered-
it.
Right.
And
I
you
felt so bad.
Oh, and you know how much I love to do ministry and encourage
Yes.
moms and so forth.
Explain to them what MOPS is, in case
Okay.
the audience doesn't know.
Sure. MOPS stands for Mothers of Preschoolers. And it's a Christian organization that's nationwide, that's in churches. And it was a lifeline for me when I was in the season of preschool, which I was the mother of one or more preschoolers for 17 consecutive years. That's a long season.
Wow. Yeah.
I know. I looked it up to see how long have I been in this? Oh, 17 years. That's all.
No wonder I'm like this.
Yeah, right. I have excuses. Well, so I love to minister to those moms because I understand how overwhelming it is. And I was living that moment right there. Well, I saw the girl's name who had booked me for this, which I was getting paid, but it was like just a little honorarium. You know, it wasn't much. Anyway, that doesn't matter. The fact that I just blew off my calendar really, really upset me. Well, when I saw her name on my phone, I knew what was happening, and I answered it, and she said, "Are you having a hard time finding a parking spot?"
Oh.
And I said, "That's not the problem."
Oh.
So then I had to tell her, I totally forgot. I was in Bradley, Illinois, which was even further away
Yes.
from Naperville. I said, I'll never make it in time. And I asked her, how many moms came? And she said, well, they were all excited to come and hear you. So we had a record number.
Oh, gosh.
That made me feel even worse.
Yeah.
They had like 80 moms or something like that. And normally they had, I don't know, half of that or something. So they were all wanting to laugh and have a good time. And so I said to her, I'll do anything that you want me to do. Is there any way that we can do it with technology? And I didn't know what I was talking about because I can barely do what we're doing now. And, all those years ago, I had never used FaceTime. I had a smartphone, but I had never used it for that. And I said, I have a smartphone and you have what you have. If you can figure out how to put me in the room with these 80 moms, I'll deliver the message from here to there. And
You are so brave.
well, what else could I do? I had to.
Well, and I'm sure you don't mind me saying you were so upset that you were crying because you felt
bawling.
that you had let them down, and maybe you felt like you let yourself down. I don't know.
Absolutely.
But the reason I'm saying this is because I was with you. I know that you were crying pretty hard. You felt so bad.
Oh,
and
yeah.
here you were in the midst of that, and you said, "I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to do it anyway."
Yeah.
And you did.
Yeah.
And wow.
This is where Laminated Jesus comes in,
Yes.
because when I hung up, because the girl had to get the tech person from the church and find out if they could put me on the big screen. It was a pretty big church, so they had a person on staff who was in charge of all that. So she said, all right, let's hang up and I'll call you back. All right. So as soon as we hung up, there was Laminated Jesus on the dashboard of Catherine's vehicle. And I was bawling. I mean, there was a lot, kind of just like my whole heart was just sort of teetering at the verge of the breakthrough of the tears anyway. I think that's why I was so, let's go to the consignment store. Let's relieve some of the stress. And then to add another layer on top of that of, you loser, you can't even figure out how to, get your calendar straight. So I burst into tears and I see Laminated Jesus and I put my hand on him and I started to pray, oh, dear Laminated Jesus, now would be a very good time for you to come back right now.
Yeah.
Here, right now. Don't waste any time. Let's get her done.
Yeah.
It's like, if there's any time for the second coming, let's make it happen today.
All right.
But that's not what happened.
Mm-hmm.
The girl called me back and she said, "We've got it figured out. We're going to put you on the big screen."
They were so gracious.
They were.
Oh my goodness.
They were. So they put me on the big screen. So now there I am with my boogers and my mascara is gone and I'm crying and they know what's happened. And I didn't even I had not one note in front of me, did not have my book in front of me.
Right.
But what I did was I walked them through my book from my head, through the seasons of a woman's life. And I just admitted my guilt, my authenticity, my vulnerability.
Right.
I was like, this is a reality show.
Thank God you didn't make the book up. You wouldn't be able to remember any
I
of
know.
it, like make up the stories.
I know.
Yeah.
And we still had 2 children at the orthodontist. So Catherine and I just took that audience with us.
Yes.
We did skip the thrift or the consignment store. We didn't go in there. We talked to these ladies. I think I might have showed them Laminated Jesus. Can't recall now.
Yeah, it was pouring rain. We even went through the drive-through.
We did. We took them through the McDonald's drive-through because that was kind of our routine. We would treat the kids. And then we took them back to the junior high. And by then, an hour had gone by. We said goodbye to the ladies.
Yeah.
And when we said goodbye and I hung up, I don't know if you remember this, but I remember just feeling this huge sense of relief. And I was exhausted.
Yeah,
oh,
I was
Lord.
for you.
I know.
Gosh,
I know.
but God knew that was going to happen, and He used that. What a better, I guess, scenario for these ladies, because who knows what these women were going through and struggling with maybe even organization, keeping
Yeah.
it all together, and then they see this kind of like train wreck. It's not a real train wreck.
No,
but it
was.
felt like one.
Yeah. And I always tell people that my book will make them feel better about their life because they'll feel like, well, at least I'm not alone, or at least I'm not that bad, right? It's bad, but it's not that bad. Well, Laminated Jesus, the reason I'm talking about that story, it relates to joy. Mm-hmm. We all know the definition of comedy. It's tragedy plus time equals comedy. So at the time when I was in that moment, I wasn't feeling joy. I wasn't feeling like it's funny at all. Mm-hmm. But now it's hilarious. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, and I have to tell our listeners this. I sent every person in that audience. I played the Oprah card. Remember when Oprah used to give away books and everybody would get, right, you get a house. So I sent them 80 autographed books so that everybody who attended that day would get a copy of my book, because I felt so like I needed to give more than I received. Mm-hmm. I didn't accept any payment from them for the talk or for the books. And then they invited me back the following year.
Yes.
So the following year they invited me back. I remembered to come. and I gave a live presentation. Yeah. Someone came up to me after I was finished talking, and the woman says, "Oh, that was good, but you were better last year."
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Again, the train wreck.
Exactly. That is I think that is it. Like, nobody wants to think or feel like someone else has it all together and you're the only one who struggles in certain areas. Mm-hmm. Joy, I believe, comes from deep within. In having that connection to Christ, in having that relationship with Christ, that that no matter what is going on here, it's temporary, it's for now, it's not forever, it's going to get worked out. So in Laminated Jesus, that was so many years ago. I still have a Laminated Jesus in my wallet, and Catherine has one on her dashboard.
I do.
And we were joking about this last night because our family has a fleet of old, falling apart vehicles. Mm-hmm. We don't have one vehicle that is altogether whole and reliable. We just have 4 cars that all together they're not worth $5,000. All 4 of them, they're not.
Oh my gosh!
My husband drives a 22-year-old pickup truck that he's constantly having to fix things on it, and he just recently had to fix the door because he would have to. It doesn't have automatic windows. he would have to crank the window down, reach through the window to open the car door. So last night I go down to Catherine's house. Well, my car is gone because my son had to take it because my husband told us that my son couldn't drive his car because it has something dangerous going on with it. It's not drivable right now. So Caleb had to drive my car. So I said to Ron, well, I'll just take your truck down to Catherine's. And he says, you can't because it won't start. Like, great. There was one car left out of the fleet, and it was my son Adam's car. I said, well, Adam, can I take your car down the street? He said, go ahead. So I go in to get in Adam's car, and I accidentally lock all the doors, and you cannot unlock them. Oh. If you lock them, you cannot unlock them. Like, what's happening? Eventually we got in because there's a trick to it. You have to turn the key twice, and then you have to go to the other side. You cannot unlock the driver's side. You have to turn it on the driver's side, walk around the car to the passenger side, open the door, and then you have to open the driver's side from the inside.
Oh my goodness. You can't just do it the Dukes of Hazzard way either because you're not young and like 20.
No, I'll be in the hospital.
Right. This is all Dave Ramsey's fault. All of it.
That's true. That is true. Here's the point about Laminated Jesus. Catherine and I have been on many adventures in these old crappy cars.
Yeah.
And we have many times put our hands on Laminated Jesus and said, please, Laminated Jesus, make the car start. Mm-hmm. Or please help us to get where we're going.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the windows don't go up, the locks don't work.
Yes. Remember when your Passat died
yes.
in Tennessee in a busy section on the road? Oh my goodness!
Yes, we were in
scary.
Franklin, Tennessee, yes. which is a very nice and busy suburb of Nashville.
That's right. Here we are in this beater,
and the car just stopped.
Oh.
And we got off to the side of the road, and I called my husband. I'm like, "Wow, the car just stopped." He goes, "Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you it does that."
Yeah.
Like, what?
My honey, I love you.
What do you mean it does that? Like that's normal.
Oh.
And then remember what he told us to do?
Take a picture.
Yeah, take a picture.
Take a picture and send it to him. He was going to diagnose the car.
Yeah. So
long distance.
We get up, and thankfully the car died at a spot where we must have been on an incline because we were able to like gimp off out of the way of traffic.
Yes.
And we were in like this shopping mall, like
yeah.
it was almost like an entrance way to a shopping area.
Yeah, retail area.
Yeah, so we popped the hood, not the trunk. We pop the hood, take a picture of the engine, send it to my husband, and then we say, now what? And he goes, I don't know. He said, just try it again. Because we were trying to drive from Tennessee to Illinois.
Yeah.
Two women with zero experience mechanically.
Yeah, zero.
So we got back in the car. We turned the key, it started, and we thought we better just keep it going now.
Yeah.
And we drove as far as we could.
Well, and Ron had said to look for a gas station with diesel only.
Gosh,
and
that's right.
I was just so bunched up because we kept going from one place to another. No diesel.
I forgot about that. Well, the bottom line of all of this is that we wouldn't have these funny adventures and we wouldn't have these fun stories to share with one another if our lives were perfect.
That's
and
right.
if we could control everything.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't have a vehicle that worked really
right
all the time. Not 100% of the time.
Yeah.
So we're just grateful.
We are. Do you want to tell them why or what the story was with Joel?
Well, Joel, yes. Okay, I'll share that with our audience. How old was he at that time? He was in elementary school.
Yeah, I think it was third and fourth.
Okay,
because
so
Mr. McAllister was involved.
That's right. So third and fourth grade. How old is one? Like 9, 10 years old, something like that.
Yeah.
All right. So if he was that age, because then I have to figure out where is everybody else. If he was, let's say 9, that meant that Adam was 7 and Caleb was 5. So we got kindergarten, we've got second grade, we've got fourth grade, whatever. They're young kids. Mm-hmm. Well, they were goofing around the night before and jumping on the bunk beds.
Mm-hmm.
And they broke the bunk beds.
Oh, gosh.
So Ron had gone to get a tool, and it was one of those, I don't know what you call it, but it's got like a round end, a socket wrench maybe?
Yeah, that's what you put in the book, a wrench.
Okay. It's some kind of a metal tool that has like a ring on one end and then something else on the other end. Well, anyway, he was fixing the bunk beds with that, and he left the tool in the bedroom rather than putting it away. Well, in the morning, we all got up, and I was in the shower trying to get ready for my day. Adam, who was like 7 or 6 or somewhere in there, he was 8.
Yeah, that's what you put in the book.
Okay, so 8, 10. Adam came in. he came knocking on the bathroom door, and I can't even tell you how many times my kids would bother me when I'm in the bathroom. And I remember thinking to myself, every time I get naked, somebody in this house wants me. Either
I wondered if you were going to say that because
it's in the
your
book.
Right.
Well, either the husband wants me and then we have more kids, or the kids want me. I just have to keep my clothes on all the time. I know it's no longer a thing, but whatever. Well, Adam was banging on the door like death had arrived. And he's like, Mom, Joel and Caleb are dying. They're dying to death, or whatever he was saying. I freaked out because I hadn't heard him like this. I think I had shampoo in my hair still. I come out like in a frantic. I put my robe on. I'm like, what's happening? Well, the baby had that little wrench stuck on his fat little toddler finger, and he couldn't get it off. So he's crying hysterically, afraid that now he has a metal appendage hanging off his hand. Joel was crying, but he was older, so he was crying like he had pain, but the baby was louder. So I'm like, well, I'm going to deal with the loud one first. And so then I had to take him into the bathroom, and I don't know what we did. We put soap on it or something to get that thing off. Handled that. Well, now Joel is saying that he's got pain in his foot, and he can't go to school. Okay, I'm putting 2 and 2 together. I'm like, well, you idiots were jumping on the bed last night. You're going to school unless you have a temperature, which you don't, or you have vomited, which you haven't. School you're going. I thought he was faking it.
Right.
I forced him to go to school, and he was hopping around on one leg, and I thought, oh, yeah, nice. We'll see how long this keeps up. It was, as I recall it, now I haven't reread my book, so I don't remember if it was like March or it was cold.
Early spring.
Okay, it was cold and windy, and I intentionally parked way far away from the door of the school building because I was taking him late because all this had made us late. And I thought, we're going to see if he's really faking it. We get halfway across the parking lot. He's crying like real tears. He's in real pain. And I realize he's not faking it. So now I have to put him on my back somehow to get him into the building. We looked like another train wreck. There it is. Look at those graphs. They are so out of control. And a long story longer, or however you want to put it, it ended up he did have a serious issue. He had post-streptococcal reactive arthritis. And so basically he had arthritis that was settling in his joints after having a strep infection, which he was treated for. He was on antibiotics, but whatever, it didn't kick it all out. We had to take him to the children's hospital. So that began like a 2-year journey of dealing with figuring out what he had and then treating it. He was on medication for quite a while. But once we realized that he had this serious thing, it kind of helped me. I hate to say it that way because I hate to have hard things happen. But if you're an adult and you're listening to this podcast, you already know hard things happen. Anybody who's just seen what's happened in 2020, we realize that things that are way out of our control happen and have an impact on us. And so all of what we were going through with Joel helped me to just relax about all the little things that were bothering me. It's like, I don't care about that stuff.
Yeah, does that.
Yeah.
When our daughter Emily was born and she came out, she was purple. And, the medical staff, they were silent, they were quiet. I saw the looks, on the faces of my husband and my mom, my parents. They were all in there.
Yeah.
freak show.
The whole crew. Come watch Catherine give birth. It's
no
amazing.
sense of, privacy. Anyway, so I thought, oh my gosh, what's wrong? And it just took hours until finally somebody came in and told us she had a birth defect.
Mm.
And I was just scared to death. And I thought God was punishing me at the time. I was not quite yet a Christian, and I thought I was, but anyway. And we were in the midst of building a house, and I was under a lot of stress. I was having heart palpitations. And anyway, long story short, they had to wait a week, but then they did major operation on her. But that really jolted perspective for me as well.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like a light was shed on the things that I was grateful for, because we were living in my parents' basement at the time while we were building the house, and then but boy, does that really shake things up when something like that happens.
Well, and also that was your second child, so you had your first two children 14 months apart or 15 months apart. That's stressful right there. And then to have your second child born with a birth defect.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I hope that our listeners can relate to our stories, because that's the reason that we share them, is we hope that they will relate to what we're sharing and feel like there's hope. You might be going through something like that right now.
Yeah.
And our hearts go out to you, because we know firsthand how it feels to feel like a failure, to feel like this isn't going to get better, to feel just feel joyless.
Right.
But we know, and I've said this many times to my 5 children, and I do try to say it to audiences when I get an opportunity to say it. For the Christian, our biggest problem has been solved.
That's right.
Our salvation is secure, regardless of the turmoil and the challenges that we face in this life. We know that it is a season. It is for now. It is not forever. And I tell the boys, I say it all works out in the end, because if it's not worked out, it is not the end.
Right. Right.
For the Christian.
Yep.
Now, if somebody happens to be listening to this podcast and you're not sure where you stand in that, like how you just said, you thought you were a Christian, but then you realize, I'm not so sure, So we would encourage those people to seek the Lord. Seek the Lord and ask him, what does it mean to really be a Christian? What does the gospel message really mean? The good news of Jesus.
That's right. No matter where you are in your walk, in your faith walk, he'll meet you right where you are. Just invite him.
For sure. Well, let's share some tips. You've got some tips that you wanted to share from the last chapter.
Well, yeah, you have on here things that brought you joy.
Yes.
So simple things that that whole entire episode with Joel brought you to some things that you were joyful about. I like the very first one that you put. I am joyful that spilled milk can be easily cleaned up. Which is very true.
Big old absorbent towel, and there it goes.
Right. Another one you have is, I am joyful that Joel likes to have his back scratched.
Aw.
Isn't that's so sweet? I am joyful that in the summer our yard is strewn with bikes, frisbees, soccer balls, plastic bases, and sopping wet beach towels.
Not anymore, but yes, that was the case.
Right. And those are just some things that, we can find ourselves as moms just being really frustrated with messes and things like that. The spilled milk, the things strewn across the yard. But in the end, what a thing to be grateful for, because you have what you have, right?
Yeah. It just reminds me, I don't think that I wrote this in the book, but I'm reminded of it now. At one point before we moved next to you, so we lived in our home before we moved to be next to our neighbors, everybody on our block had a really fancy play set, and we didn't. But we had a boatload of kids, and I would just send them outside to play with the dirt. Like, just, I don't know, go out there and play. And our yard looked like the grass had been mashed. We had a sandbox back there, and there was stuff, everywhere. And in the wintertime, our snow would be all like trampled. It looked like there had been, a herd of cattle that had come through. There were snow angels everywhere. And the other yards, for whatever reason, which I don't know, looked
Pristine.
beautiful.
The snow is whiter on the other side.
Yes. No snow angels, no herd of trampling feet. But now looking back, so that was like 25 years ago. So now I'm 55, and back then, I was 30 or whatever. Looking back, those were signs of life. Those were just us being alive.
That's right. You actually have that.
Did I put that in there?
You do. So that really must have really stuck with you, because one of these you do say, "Oh yeah, I am joyful that in winter our yard is trampled with snowy footprints and snow angels, and that our entryway is littered with boots, snow pants, gloves, hats, scarves, and coats." And I have to tell you, even today, I do get frustrated with a bunch of shoes in the way and not put away, but in the long run, I know that that's just something that's nothing.
No, it's
There's
actually something to celebrate.
Right.
And to be happy about, because these are seasons that, I think about Days of Our Lives, that old soap opera, and they had the hourglass, and women who are our age or older, they would remember it. But that is how time is. It's like slipping through, and you cannot stop it. You cannot slow it down. You might want to when you're in those frustrating days. One day could seem like 1,000 years, but when you're 20 years past it, and it's now, a season that came and went. That's going to be our whole life. That's the truth of our whole life. As we know that in the book of James talks about it, and he says that life is like a vapor. It's just a vapor. And then we have our eternal life. All right, well, let's leave our audience with some encouragement from the Bible. We thought that a perfect little passage would be Psalm 51, verses 10 through 19. And let's see, I'm on Psalm 52, so bear with me. Here's Psalm 51. Starting at verse 10, it says, "Create in me a pure heart, O God, and renew a steadfast spirit within me. Do not cast me from your presence or take your Holy Spirit from me. Restore to me the joy of your salvation, and grant me a willing spirit to sustain me." I can relate to that as an imperfect failure. I can relate to that from the stories that I've put in my book. I've put them in my act. I've shared them with others. For God to just make us to have a pure heart, to want to know Him more, to bring glory to Him. So that's our encouragement. We're sticking to it.
We are.
All right. Well, join us next time.
Goodbye.